this voyage, Charles Darwin. Many people remember Darwin as that crusty old guy with a beard that wrote a book on evolution, and that's the picture that most people have of him, and that's the only thing that often many people know of him. But he wasn't just an old guy that wrote a book on evolution. He studied, he explored, he discovered pretty much everything you can imagine, from the theory of how plants eat animals, carnivorous plants, to how mountains form, to the formation of atolls, to how earthworms create soil in the world around us, and countless other things. This man literally changed the world with his mind, his beautiful mind. However, that said, that image that we have of him was absolutely, completely different to the man that was here in Plymouth in 1831. I think it was mentioned in an earlier talk. He was just 22 years old, and he wasn't some crusty old guy with a beard. He was a 22-year-old Indiana Jones character. He climbed mountains, he swam in reefs, he rode the gauchos, he ate an armadillo for breakfast. He had all of these incredible adventures. And very, very quickly, if you'll allow me, I'll tell you a very brief overview of his personal story, because he is not what you might imagine him to be. He was born on the 12th of February in 1809 in Shrewsbury. Sadly, his mother passed away in 1817, and his father, Robert Darwin, who was a wealthy physician, doctor, raised him. As is so often the case in history, his childhood gave very, very little indication of his potential. In fact, quite the opposite. He attended Shrewsbury School from 1818 to 1825, but he hated it. Described his studies as narrow and classical. He later wrote, "All my teachers thought I was a very ordinary boy, rather below the intellectual grade." In 1825, he was actually removed from school because his time was regarded as unsuccessful and a waste of time, and he spent the summer of 1825 accompanying his father on the doctor's rounds. This led him to be sent to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland to study medicine, but he hated the sight of blood and operations, and actually, because this was before chloroform, he wrote how it haunted the rest of his life. So he actually dropped out. He was a dropout from university. He quit it without a degree. His father was really disappointed with his progress and thought he was idle and wasting his life. Robert, his father, said to him, "You have no other interests apart from shooting and catching rats, and you're going to bring shame upon yourself and your whole family." In an incredibly ironic twist, at this point, because his father just didn't know what to do with him, he sent him to Cambridge to study divinity. He was destined to go to the church as a country parson, which was often the case for aristocracy. They'd send the child that they didn't really know what career they'd have to do that. But even at Cambridge, studying philosophy, Darwin wasn't exactly the ideal student. He later wrote in his life, how he spent much of his time with low-minded men and drunk rather too much. With a group of his friends, he joined and set up something called the Glutton Club, whose mission was to meet weekly to eat birds and beasts which had before been unknown to the human palate. As a Glutton Club member, he ate Norfolk eels, he ate hawks, he ate bitterns, he ate brown owls, but the owls apparently were so indescribable that the club seemed to disband pretty quickly soon afterwards.